Ah yes, Loyola Chicago in 2018, one of our favorite Final Four runs of all time. The charismatic players, the game-winning shots, Sister Jean, a 100-year-old icon, what a story. This was peak March Madness. However, today, I'm playing devil's advocate. What if I told you that the Loyola Chicago Ramblers were the luckiest March Madness Cinderella of all time? And surprisingly, there is substance to this claim. By the end of the video, we're going to break it all down and see if the numbers back it up. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't take away from their run. If anything, it makes it seem even more magical. But the reality is, everything had to go right for the Ramblers in 2018. Some underdog runs were pure dominance against elite competition, and others might have had a little extra help from the basketball gods. Let me know in the comments, was this the luckiest Final Four run in March Madness history? If you're new around here, just subscribe already. I'm going absolutely insane in the month of March with these videos. I already did Wichita State, I already did George Mason. Make sure to check these out after you watch this one. Last time Loyola Chicago was seriously relevant in hoops was long before most of us were even a sperm cell. The previous tournament appearance before 2018 was all the way back in 1985, where the Ramblers reached the Sweet 16. However, Loyola was on the rise during the 2010s. Once Coach Porter Moser took the head job in 2011, it became a completely new ballgame, and it also was during a pivotal time where the team was in transition from the Horizon League to the Missouri Valley Conference, a step up in competition. In 2015, the Ramblers had a 24-13 record while winning the CBI tournament, which is a step below the NIT. Now, this seems like a joke for most, but it was also their first appearance in the postseason since that 85 tourney team I just mentioned. 3 years later, all the seeds planted by Moser started to bloom. People knew that the 2018 Ramblers were something special right out of the gate when they went on the road against number 5 in the nation, Florida, and beat them 65-59 on a December night in front of a crowd of nearly 10K. But they started Missouri Valley play rough, losing 2 of the first 3 contests. Then they went on a tear. Loyola ended up winning their last 10 games before the NCAA tourney, including breezing through the MVC tournament as the 1 seed, dominating the title game against Illinois State. Let's look at it by the numbers. This team was no fluke. They were 28-5 overall, going 15-3 in MVC play. They were top 30 nationally in KenPom and top 20 in defensive efficiency. All of this earned them an 11 seed in the tourney. They had a methodical, grind you out style of play, which is exactly what you would expect from a team with no NBA level talent. Now, that perfectly bridges me into the next segment. Let me explain some of the key players so this run can make more sense to you. Clayton Cluster, the junior guard and a former Iowa State Cyclone who took over this Loyola offense. He was the floor general and leader. He averaged over 13 a game and was the MVC player of the year for 2018. Dante Ingram, the senior forward and veteran presence who had seen what felt like the entire program rebuild. He was never afraid to take the big shot, which we'll talk about soon. Here's another transfer, Marcus Towns, a junior guard. And thinking about it now, Loyola was doing this back before the portal. They were trendsetters. Now, Towns didn't light up the stat sheet in the regular season, but was clutch when it mattered most. Ben Richardson was the defensive specialist who set this team's gritty identity. The senior guard won the MVC Defensive Player of the Year, and he could shoot too if need be. No one star, but these guys played in unison and made it happen. So you get the context. Let's dive into one of the luckiest runs to the Final Four ever. Was this run easy? Well, I'll talk about it after. Right now, we're talking about the heroics. First round against number 6 seeded Miami. Now, this was a very good Canes team under legendary head coach Jim Larrañaga, but people already knew this game was going to be close. It was a decently popular 11-6 upset choice, and the Canes were only favored by 3. That said something. As expected, it was tight all the way through. The largest lead for each team was only 7. Loyola was down 1 with 9 seconds left, and Miami had the ball. Miami's leading scorer, Lonnie Walker, was fouled and missed the front end of a 1-and-1. Loyola grabs the rebound, pushes up the floor, and Dante Ingram drills a deep 3 at the buzzer. Game over. Pause for a story time. I remember watching this game freshman year of high school in physics class. Our entire table, we were surrounded with the laptop watching his final seconds. When he hit it, we just exploded. Professor had no idea what was going on. The other students in the class, the girls in the back corner were like, what is going on? We were here jumping around. It was a great moment. If Walker makes makes the free throws, Loyola probably doesn't even win the game. This is the first of many close calls for the Ramblers during the tourney, but credit to these guys for never flinching and staying composed. Second round facing number 3 Tennessee. Now, unlike the first game, no one really saw Loyola winning this. The Vols were a sleeper to make a run. Both teams shot a similar clip from the field from 3, which wasn't amazing. It was a slow-paced, disciplined defensive war. You just gotta love it in March. The Ramblers led by 10 with 4 minutes to go, but after a Tennessee run, it was yet another one-possession game. Down 1 with 10 seconds left, Clayton Cluster hits a contested jumper with the roll. Talk about shooter's touch, oh baby. Already 2 games in, this is a run for the ages. Sweet 16, some mid-major madness. Number 11 Loyola, number 7 Nevada. Another game decided by 1 point. Now, Nevada was a mirror of Loyola. Their first 2 games were extremely tight as well, including an OT win against Texas in round 1. However, their play styles weren't mirrored. Nevada scored a lot, shot a lot of threes, and lived and died by the tray ball. The reason why this game was close is because the Ramblers dictated the tempo, played the way they wanted to, and held the pack to 7 of 27 behind the arc. Anyways, let's get into the final seconds. Marcus Towns, under 10 seconds to go to extend the lead. Bang! The Elite 8 versus number 9 Kansas State. Now, this one was different. Pure domination. Yeah, I've been preaching Loyola's defense all video for good reason. They held K-State's offense to 34% from the field. No, not the three-point line, the field. It was never really a game. Ben Richardson had a sweet performance of 23 points, 6 boards, 4 assists on 6 of 7 behind the arc. And I hate to be that guy, but Kansas State was a 9, and I'll get more into that soon. The Magic finally ran out in the Final Four against number 3 Michigan. Loyola led by 7 at the half, but the Wolverines took over in the second and ended the dream. But it's all right. The Ramblers gave us lore to talk about for future decades. So, why was Loyola Chicago's Final Four run the luckiest ever? Now, you probably get a sense from the game recaps. Few teams, if any, have benefited from such a perfect combination of matchups, breaks, and favorable circumstances. First off, you may have noticed the Ramblers didn't face a 1 seed. That's great. And they didn't even face a 2 seed. Even better. Remember, the South region of this tournament was absolutely broken. Number 1 overall seed Virginia got stunned by 16th seeded UMBC. It was chaos, and Loyola took complete advantage. To put this in perspective, the only other team to do this since 2000, not facing a 1 or 2 on the way to the Final Four, was Florida Atlantic in 2023, 5 years after the Ramblers. For comparison, let's look at some other Cinderella teams. VCU in 2011 had to beat number 1 Kansas in the Elite 8. Butler in 2010 had to beat number 1 Syracuse in the Sweet 16. And George Mason in 2006 had to beat number 1 UConn in the Elite 8. And Mason felt like they had to beat every blue blood of all time to get to the Final Four. Loyola Chicago's toughest opponent statistically was number 3 seeded Tennessee in the second round. Avoiding top seeded juggernauts was a statistical rarity, and they were in the right place at the right time. Here's something else that's crazy. Historically, Loyola Chicago might have had one of the easiest Elite 8 matchups to get to the Final Four of all time. They played number 9 Kansas State in a matchup between 2 extreme underdogs. Now, don't get me wrong, K-State had a great group, but the combined seed total was 20, 11 plus 9, making it one of the highest combined seed matchups in Elite 8 history. For comparison, the highest ever was St. Peter's at 15 versus North Carolina at 8 in 2022, which was 23 total. Instead of a blue blood program standing in their way like Duke, Kansas, or Villanova, who actually won the title that year, they faced a KSU team that had just upset number 5 Kentucky and was playing way above expectations. And then they got handled by a Michigan team that went on to get crushed by Villanova. Nova was fantastic, but this makes us ask, does Loyola win any other region where there wasn't extreme chaos? Finally, the razor-thin margins. The Ramblers won 3 straight games by a combined 4 points. In other words, they won by a hair on your balls. The odds of winning 3 one-possession games in a row in March are incredibly low. In all 3 games, their opponents had final possessions with the chance to win or tie, and even if one of those games had gone the other way, well, this never happens. In the past 40 years of NCAA tournament play, only a handful of teams have won 3 straight tournament games by a single possession before reaching the Final Four. Now, Loyola Chicago's run is one of the rarest examples, as they did so as a double-digit seed, and that is just wild. Yes, this was the luckiest modern Final Four run, which embodies everything we want in a Cinderella and makes it even better. There is a reason why we will never forget about 2018 Loyola Chicago. What video do y'all want to see next? Because I got time. Let me know in the comments.